LATD Nation, welcome back to the channel. Of course, it's your boy Jay.
This is Rodney.
And we are LATD, of course, as always. Today we're going to be looking at the details of
Ballerina.
From the world of John Wick.
Yes, sir. Very interesting entry in what has now become a legendary action franchise. John Wick needs no introduction. This is the 5th installment. This is the first spin-off that's been theatrically released.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say because there was...
You got the Continental.
Man, I was about to say that. It was my turn. But anyway, but y'all know John Wick, famous badass assassin, hitman, went the straight and narrow life, got a wife, got a dog, but then next thing you know, a random person comes and breaks into his house and kills his dog and steals his car. His wife had done already passed on at that point. It's such a sad moment. But then he gets to work and gets back on his bullshit and pops out and shows niggas.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We already know John Wick, legendary character at this point, the Baba Yaga, appeared in a lot of media over the years outside of just John Wick, including Fortnite. But who ain't been in Fortnite? Sabrina Carpenter's in it right now.
Yeah, I'm surprised John Wick wasn't in Just Dance.
I mean, yeah, for real. At this point, he's a legendary character, one of Keanu's most iconic. It's cool to see a veteran actor who's been around this long continue to have this kind of momentum going into the latter half of his career. But Ballerina is a little bit different because this is the first one that's really not starring John. It's not focusing on his characters, not focusing on Keanu. It's set in the same universe, though, which we're going to talk about a little bit. It's between 3 and 4, I believe.
Right.
It's during and then a little bit after 3, but it's before 4.
Yeah. And the neat thing about this movie is that John is in it, but like Rodney just said, like you just said, he's not the main focal point. So the movie starts off with this one guy who's a part of the same faction of gang members, crime syndicate called the Roma, the same that John is from.
Yeah, of course. So basically, what it is because you remember in John Wick 3 when they went to the Roma, or when John went to the Roma after he escaped everybody that was trying to kill him in the beginning in New York. He went to them, and there was that one ballerina on stage. Basically, they're taking that and they're expanding it and they're bringing it more of a lore into it. And Ana de Armas, who plays Eve in the movie, she's one of those ballerinas that is being instructed in the home and the school, basically where John honed his skills.
Now, was she the same ballerina that was kind of failing?
I can't remember exactly if she's supposed to be. If so, obviously she was recast.
Or maybe not, because that ballerina had tattoos on her back, the same tattoos that John has. So
I think it was intended to be the same, but I think it was kind of like, I guess, rewritten, or it was kind of like retrospectively kind of changed to be something else. So, I mean, it really doesn't matter either way because it's not really that integral. We still see Eve on the stage as a ballerina. Right.
Because, the only reason why I bring that up, because that would have been another cool, like, a connection to the third movie as well. But one thing I like about this movie is that it is very creative, and I like how we get to see from her perspective, because she's a part of Roma, we get to see the more of the insides, more of what goes on behind the scenes with these different crime syndicates, because there's different fronts for different organizations. Like, what's her name? The mother is known as the director, or the boss is known as the director. And then you also had like the library, and in John Wick 3, same thing with what's his name? I forgot his name, but yeah. Oh, same thing with the Continentals too. Like the Chrysler Building is just another Continental hotel. And yeah, I just really like that they really delved into that part of the story. You know what I'm saying?
And I think that that's kind of where like this movie succeeds the most strength wise, is that they continue to successfully expand the world now outside of just John, because of course throughout the majority of the time this franchise has been around for a decade now.
Right.
And
that's right.
Since 2014, and it's cool that it's getting to a point where now we're starting to see more things outside of just his world and his perspective. We're getting to see different aspects and different pieces of this universe. And I think that they did a good job of expanding the lore through Eve. she kind of has her own perspective. She has her own sort of unique worldview. Because, not to spoil anything, she's out for revenge. It ain't anything too out of the ordinary, especially for an action movie. Kind of the sort of thing we've seen time and time again. But I think what really sells this movie to me is the action, as well as, I would really honestly say, her performance. I think she really sold her performance as a woman scorned, who's basically trained her whole life to get revenge on this new cult that sort of exists outside of the rules of the Continental and the High Table.
Right. Because another thing that I liked about this movie too was the subversions that they put in it. Because, for example, you know how John will kind of like drive off into the distance, and then next thing you know, that's the end of that little fight or that segment. It pretty much subverts your expectations, because somebody random will just come out of nowhere, and then next you know, bam, and just run into her. Or when she's like kind of having those classic suit up scenes, or with the weapon scenes where they like saying, oh, this weapon does this, that, and the third. Next thing you know, a bomb goes off or whatever like that.
Right in the middle of it. So it kind of keeps you on your toes in a way.
Right. That's a big thing big small thing that I liked about this movie too. Especially the action, I agree. Because it was very creative and very inventive, rather than just being a couple gunshots to the chest and then one to the head.
Which it could have very easily been. You know how this franchise kind of has become not known for, but they have a very particular style of action that they employ.
Yeah, it's more focused on like gunplay, and at least in the first 4 John Wick movies. But when you got characters like Kane, and then like Mr. Nobody in John Wick 4, that really opened the door for how creative the kills can be, especially with Kane, because he's, you know, the blind Wing Chun master played by Donnie Yen. Like when he had the cane sword and everything, he would just do like a couple stabs at the chest of people are down and everything, and just use like the little noisemakers, so if people pass him, he can hear where they're coming from and everything.
He knows what direction to shoot.
Right, yeah. So I feel like they took a lot of inspiration. Of course they did, but I feel like they took a lot of like leeway with that too, and just cranked it on top of each other. And I love action movies, if y'all didn't know. So
yeah, for sure. Same here. That's one thing about. That's why 4 was my favorite, just in terms of like the action and just the overall way in which they said it. And I also think 4 is the best one from a storytelling perspective. I think 4 is the one that had the most memorable characters, on both sides, not just in terms of John's side, but in terms of the villains too. The Marquis, Kane, who's not really a villain, kind of sort of an anti-hero. He's an old friend of John's, and Mr. Nobody. These were characters that were so great. I wouldn't mind seeing spin-offs. We have a Kane sequel in the works. It's confirmed that Donnie Yen is returning, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. But more back to Ballerina. I'll say that Ballerina's greatest strengths were, like I said, the performances, particularly Ana de Armas. I think Norman Reedus is good for the little bit of time he's in there, and overall the expansion of the world is great. But I will say that story-wise, to me, it's easily the weakest in the franchise, personally. Not to say it's bad, it's just serviceable, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can agree with that too. I can agree with that, because that's the biggest thing. I think that's probably the worst aspect of this movie, other than Keanu Reeves' acting, but we'll get to that.
Yeah,
sure. Because the story is very much a formulaic video game plot, essentially. Because this
essentially
both I was about to say gameplay, like this movie's a video game, but both in like scale and scope, it's very similar to Slow Clap's Sifu video game. That's kind of like an action movie-esque. It's another revenge tale where you have to find different people in order to get to the main boss, who's the strongest out of all of them, type stuff. So it's very formulaic like that. But and on top of that, this has some, in a way, continuity errors maybe.
Yeah.
Because in the movie, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but if y'all saw in John Wick 4 how he had to go to the Ruska Roma in Berlin, Germany, and because he got his ticket torn in John Wick 3, he's no longer a part of the family. If anything, they strung him up when he got to Berlin. On top of that,
they was not rocking with John at all at that point.
And so my question was, especially after we saw the movie, we see that his left finger is taken, like he did in Chapter 3. But why is he still a part? Why is he why does the director still call on him to try to stop her? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
if he can never come home like she stated in John Wick 3, my fault.
No, you're good. Yeah, I agree. That's one thing that I did think was kind of strange. It's like the continuity of it. Now, don't get me wrong. It's still cool seeing Keanu, especially as John. In my opinion, it was cool seeing him from a different perspective because we kind of get to see more of that sense of that Baba Yaga. It's almost kind of like what I said to you, where it's kind of like you were used to playing as a particular video game protagonist, and then they introduce a new protagonist, and then you eventually come across that protagonist and you kind of fight. Think Ellie and Last of Us or the upcoming Ninja Gaiden 4. Definitely going to talk about that.
Got to.
But yeah, it kind of reminded me of that in the sense where you kind of get to see in canon just how dangerous this person is supposed to be. So I enjoyed that aspect, getting to see John be the Baba Yaga and we're not following him. And we kind of get to see them, how they kind of view John from a different perspective. So that was really cool. But in terms of continuity, I do agree it's kind of weird because it's just like, I mean, this is before 4, but at one point I think it's during 3 because she meets John.
Right, of course, yeah.
At the Rumino, like at the
Ruscaroma.
The Ruscaroma at the their hideout. And then it's 2 months later they fast forward and now it's kind of like presumably it's after that.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But before 4. So I don't really know how that fits in. It's kind of weird in my opinion. I don't have a issue with John being in the movie, but I kind of do wish that they had wrote it a little bit better in that regard.
A little more cohesive.
Yeah, I agree.
But other than that, there really isn't much else to say.
Not really, no.
Because this movie is as straightforward as can be. Now with the story being the weakest part, like we get it. It's not like it's not really known for their stories anyway.
Not really, no.
But the concepts that they introduce are very interesting to me, like the whole underworld scene and all the continentals across the world and how like you can't break any. And that's another thing. There's like a whole scene in this movie where the rules of the Continental are essentially broken. Like I don't think you can't conduct business, as they say. In other words, I don't know what they mean by like fight people because
no, business isn't to be conducted regardless. Like if you enter the Continental with the intention of closing a contract, let's say that, you're gonna lose Continental privileges, which we saw John, of course, lose.
Well, we actually saw earlier than that.
Yeah,
in the first one with Miss Perkins, I can stand her.
Boy, what?
I'm gonna tell you now when the way she did
Harry.
That hurt my soul because he's one of my favorite. The actor who played him was one of my favorite characters, Lester in The Wire. I don't know if I'm touching the right. There we go. But oh man, I shouldn't have paused. Anyway, but but no, it's like I do like those worlds and the concepts that they bring up. That's why I even though Continental wasn't on Peacock, the little prequel going along with like Henry, what's his name, Winston's story. I thought even though I wish it was better, I still like the ideas that they brought up in it. And the fact that you get to see the 69 Mustang that John has, but they don't really. But it's more like a It's a cameo essentially.
It's a nod, basically.
Yeah. So it's just I wish they would kind of focus a little bit more on the stories too, at least a little bit. At least make it more cohesive and not feel just like a regular revenge tale.
Yeah, I can agree to that. I do, but I think for what it is, it's solid.
I agree.
And it gave me more of what I wanted, which was more, John Wick. So overall,
I agree.
I give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I give it 7 out of 10 too. It was smooth for me. It was pretty smooth.
Yeah. I ain't have no issues. I didn't take anything away from it negative. I went in and I just had a good time, and I think it's because I kind of knew what to expect.
Yeah, same here.
Me being a John Wick fan for as long as I've been, I know what to expect.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting this to be on par with John Wick 3 or 4 or any of the main line. I just needed it to be decent, and it was.
If anything, for me, it was more than decent, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was good. It was a good movie. I'm not gonna say, well, man, I love this movie, but I thought it was great. Or good in its own right.
Yeah, same. I agree. I think
it helped. Another thing. I'm sorry to cut you off. That I did like. It stands on its own.
I agree. I did a good job of that, yeah.
Exactly. And it's the same thing that I say about cameos and special guest appearances all the time. If you're going to have that, it needs to be the icing on the cake. You know what I'm saying? And not be the cake itself.
Yeah.
And and truth be told, if they didn't really need John in this movie for it to be good and serviceable as it was.
And I agree that's a good thing, because a lot of the time when they have movies like this, they'll rely on what people already love in order to kind of sell it. But I think this movie stands strong on its own.
And another quick example of that is the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Now, for me, it wasn't that. I didn't think it was that bad. It definitely wasn't great, but I thought it was okay for what it was. But the thing is, when they brought in Din Djarin from The Mandalorian, those 2 episodes, people constantly saying those are the best episodes, and that's what made the show good, is another testament of saying that the show is bad in a way. Because it's like, if you got to bring somebody else in order to make the whole show elevate, that's how you know your show isn't really that good from rooter to the tutor. You feel me?
Yeah, which thankfully this wasn't the case with this movie. Like I said, overall, I give it a recommendation to anybody that's a John Wick fan, but that's pretty much all I have to say.
Yeah, same here, man. With that being said, I've been Jay.
And this has been Rodney.
And we're LATD. We got more videos to come. Hey, maybe a certain Tyler Perry movie will get reviewed. Oh, golly. Boy, I'm watching it right now. Hey, check us out on TikTok. Check us out on Instagram, especially here on YouTube. Y'all be safe. Remember, everybody, look at the details. Peace.